Yeah, grab sound bites 15 and 16, because I mentioned earlier that there's an all-out effort now, an all-out assault on Ted Cruz and others like him. There is an all-out effort within the Republican Party, within the Republican establishment, to deal with Ted Cruz and his attempted takeover of the Republican Party. On the News Hour on Friday night on PBS, David Brooks, the supposed conservative columnist for the New York Times, warned that Ted Cruz and similar legislators' rise to prominence threatens the traditional Republican Party. Brooks insists that Ted Cruz's motives are less about legislation and policy and more about the politics of undermining the Republican establishment. And Brooks considers himself to be a ranking member of the Republican establishment. He says, you people are being fooled by Cruz. Cruz doesn't really care about you and legislation and policy. He's trying to undermine the Republican establishment. Let's go to the audio sound bites. This is Brooks on the News Hour on PBS Friday night, talking to Judy Woodruff.
What's going on in the House, and a bit in the Senate too, is what you might call the rise of Ted Cruzism. And Ted Cruz, the senator from Canada through Texas, is basically not a legislator in the normal sense. Does not have an idea that he's going to Congress, create coalitions, make alliances, and he's going to pass a lot of legislation. He's going in more as a media protest person, and a lot of the House Republicans are in the same mode. They're not normal members of Congress. They're not legislators. They want to stop things. And so they just want to obstruct.
You believe this? What in the hell are they supposed to do, Mr. Brooks? This is what every one of you ought to be doing. Why do you call yourself a Republican if all you want to do is lay down and agree with Obama and the Democrats? Why don't you switch parties if it's so much better over there? What in the world is he supposed to do? He was sent there to stop this. He was sent to Washington specifically to try to stop some of this. And the popular assumption, Mr. Brooks, among most Republican voters is that's what the Republican Party at large is supposed to be doing right now. And yet here's Brooks, and by the way, he's speaking for a lot of the Republican establishment when he says these things. Oh my God, they're trying to actually oppose this. They're just trying to obstruct. They're just trying to stop things. They're not normal members of Congress. They're not legislators. What the hell is a normal Republican, Mr. Brooks? Bends over and agrees whatever the Democrats want? Makes compromises? Gets along? Goes along? What is a normal Republican? I guess we know. So Ted Cruz is to be taken out and destroyed because he wants to stop this? I think the vast majority of American people want Obamacare stopped, Mr. Brooks. Latest numbers from the NBC Wall Street Journal poll, only 12% of the American people think it's going to do them any good. 78%, simple math, don't want this, Mr. Brooks. So Cruz isn't a good legislator. He does not compromise what he believes. He doesn't compromise his core beliefs or principles. He isn't normal. He's just a malcontent. He's really trying to get rid of the Republican establishment. That's what he's really trying to do. Mr. Brooks, the Republican establishment needs to be undermined. If you are accurately portraying the mindset of the Republican establishment, it needs to be undermined. It needs to be stopped. There used to be things that Republicans stood for. Free markets, capitalism, individual liberties, limited government. What happened to all that, Mr. Brooks? That's what Cruz believes in. And millions of Americans still do, too. When did this happen? When did it happen that the Republican establishment decided that their primary objective is to throw in with the Democrats? throw in with Obama. When did that happen? There's one more soundbite here. After Brooks said that Cruz is just in the Senate to obstruct legislation, he then added this.
And the second thing they're doing, which is alarming a lot of Republicans, is they're running against their own party. Ted Cruz is running against Republicans in the Senate. The House Republican Tea Party types are running against the Republican establishment. That's how they're raising money. That's where they're spending their money on ads. And so they're having a very obstructive role, which is going on this week, and I think it's going to make John Boehner's life even more difficult.
This is unreal. This is unbelievable. Except it's all too real and believable, isn't it? I'm not sure that I heard what I just heard, even though I intellectually know that this is exactly the thinking of the Republican establishment now. Well, the worst thing is they're running against their own party. Oh, we're running against the Washington establishment, Mr. Brooks, which sadly knows no party differences anymore. The Washington establishment is all Republicans and Democrats. It doesn't matter. They just call themselves different things, but the Washington establishment apparently is all in the same game. There's no difference between you, Mr. Brooks, and a Democrat. What's the point? Spending your money on ads, a very, very obstructive role. What's going on this week? I think it's going to make John Boehner's life even more difficult. What could possibly be difficult about agreeing with Obama? How hard is that? Obama says he wants this, you give it to him. The establishment triumphs. Is that how the game's played now? I did warn you. I have tried over the years to remind people that the Republican Party has its own problems with conservatism, not just the Democrats. And it's because conservatism is opposed to a major, big, dominant Washington establishment.